announced three huge title fights that are going to be headlining the first three pay-per-views of 2024, and those fights are Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis for the middleweight title at UFC 297 down in Canada, Volkanovski versus Topuria for UFC 298, and O'Malley versus Cheeto for UFC 299 in March. Now, these are some big matchups. Cheeto versus O'Malley, probably one of the bigger ones on paper in terms of like eyes on it. But I think that the other two are bigger matchups in terms of stylistic and rankings. But let's just get right into it. Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Now, I think that this is the right decision by the UFC. I don't think that Khamzat's win over Usman earned him a title shot. I don't think it was, one, that impressive. It was pretty close in the end, and he was supposed to walk through Usman according to everyone. And two, Usman was not a ranked middleweight. Usman was a ranked welterweight. You don't get a title shot in middleweight off beating a welterweight. And Dricus Du Plessis has more than earned his shot at middleweight after beating Whittaker the way he did. He absolutely dominated Robert Whittaker. That fight was not close at all. And yeah, I mean, people count him out, but he's legit. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got grappling. The only thing is his cardio, and he's proven that he does have decent enough cardio. I mean, he's never been to a fourth round before, which I'll get into, but he hasn't really gassed out and lost a fight. He looked really gassed out against Brunson, but he ended up finishing him. And yeah, I mean, I think Strickland has the advantage in the stand-up, especially when it comes to boxing and defense. Dricus has the advantage in the power. I would probably say the speed, too, on the feet, and explosiveness overall. And Dricus definitely has the advantage in the grappling, or the wrestling, I should say. Sean supposedly has some solid submission grappling, but Dricus has more proven ground game. And the main thing I want to get into is that Sean has proven 5-round cardio. This is the main point I have for this matchup, is that Sean has been in 5-round fights, and the only one he lost was the one to Jared Cannonier, and I personally think he won that fight. So he's, in my eyes, Sean Strickland's undefeated in 5-round fights, including one with Israel Adesanya for the title. Dricus Du Plessis, on the other hand, has never been to a fourth round in his whole career, let alone won a 5-round fight. So the problem I have with this matchup is that I don't think that Dricus' cardio is as bad as people were making it out to be. I think it was a lot to do with his oxygen in his nose and things like that, but I don't know. I don't know how he's going to look in a fourth round with this like kind of blitzing marauder style that he has, where he kind of blitzes forward and kind of throws almost everything he has into a lot of his shots and a lot of his takedown attempts. And it seems like if he's not able to finish Sean Strickland within the first 2 rounds, maybe third, then I really do think that Sean Strickland is going to run away with this fight in the fourth and the fifth. And I even think he's going to win the third if Dricus comes out guns blazing, which would be dumb for him to do because we saw Abus Magomedov do the same thing and get absolutely obliterated by Strickland. And the only person who's been able to finish the middleweight evolved version of Strickland early on has been Alex Pereira, who has the one-shot KO power of one-shot KO powers and has legendary kickboxing skills to back it up. So it's going to be a tough ask for Dricus to go out there and catch Sean. And overall in this fight, I'm not sure who I'm going to pick. I'm probably going to have to wait to watch more fights back and do a little more research into the fight before I make an official prediction. But I am going to be leaning towards Strickland. But yeah, I think it's a great matchup. I think it's going to be an amazing fight. I think that card really needed a huge matchup like that just to be, worth it for not only pay-per-views, but for the fans. Because I know the Canadian fans, they're loyal. They're going to go to see whatever. But is it really fair to them to just because they will go and see whatever? Is it fair to give them a shitty main event between a vacant women's title between two people that no one cares about? It's not really fair for them to do that. So I think it's only fair for them to give them a great matchup like this one. That's going to be a barn burner. The press conference is going to be interesting. Both guys are not afraid to speak their minds, and it's more so Sean Strickland, but I think it'll be very entertaining. Moving on, Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski. Now, the main thing I have to say about this fight is I'm a little worried for Volkanovski, given that he's turning around only 4 months after getting KO'd by Islam Makhachev. But other than that, I think that he will outclass Topuria. I think he's better than Topuria pretty much everywhere, and I think Topuria is very good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Topuria is bad. Topuria is extremely talented, and he's very skilled, and he's very young, but I think that one thing Topuria will be open for is leg kicks from Volk. That will one, open up Volk's hands, and then two, slow Topuria down, which will in turn affect his offense and his boxing. And then I think that Volk's boxing is better. And the reason I have for that is because, yeah, Topuria looked amazing against Josh Emmett, and he 50-45'd him, almost finished him on multiple occasions. But it's one thing to 50-45 Josh Emmett in a stand-up match. It's a whole other ball game to 50-45 Max Holloway in a stand-up only match. Like, who is doing that? Who is out here 50-45ing Max Holloway in a boxing match? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't happen. You know, Max Holloway is a dog. But yeah, like that's just like, who does that to Max Holloway? Nobody, only Volk. And to do that to Max is much more impressive than doing that to Emmett. No disrespect to Emmett or to Topuria. It's just like Emmett is a guy that has a big overhand right and like a big left hook, and that's about it. You know what I mean? Like, if he doesn't catch you with a big wind up left hook from left field or an overhand right, then you're gonna beat him. You know what I mean? You're gonna beat him unless you're Calvin Kattar and you get robbed blind by the judges. But that's another discussion. And yeah, well, also Ilya's a good grappler, but I think that Islam's better and more dangerous. And if Islam has your back and isn't subbing you, then I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Ilia Topuria is not gonna sub Volk. So I'm gonna pick Volk by decision, maybe late TKO. But I'm gonna have to say here that this prediction might change, and also because I think that there is a pretty somewhat decent chance that Ilia Topuria KOs Volkanovski because he's coming back too fast from the knockout loss to Islam. So even though I do think Volk wins this fight, I'm not super confident in picking Volk because I think there's a decent chance that Ilia Topuria finishes him because he's coming back way too soon. But with that being said, I think that if Topuria does finish Volk, it's more so because of the quick turnaround. I don't think that Topuria is better than Volk. I think Volk's better pretty much everywhere. Now let's move on to the next one. O'Malley versus Cheeto. This is a rematch between their first fight, which ended in a TKO in the first round for Cheeto after he kicked Sean's peroneal nerve and Sean's leg gave out. And like when I say this is a little bit fluky, I'm not trying to take anything away from Cheeto. It was a good win. You know, he threw the kick, it landed, and it messed Sean's leg up. I'm not saying that he didn't earn the win. What I mean is that like if he threw that kick 10 times, it might hit the peroneal nerve once, if that. It might hit it maybe probably less than. Like, obviously, like, that doesn't make sense, but, like, 1 out of 20 times, maybe. Like, it's just a very, there's no way that Cheeto was aiming to hit Sean's peroneal nerve. Like, that's such a small target. That, like, that's like, nobody aims to hit that nerve. Like, you hope it does, but you don't actually aim for it. So, like, there was a little bit of flukiness, but at the end of the day, he did leg kick Sean, and Sean's leg did get messed up. He got drop foot and all that, and he did TKO him with elbows. So, you know, it was a good win for Cheeto, but the thing about Cheeto is, like, the Rob Font win was a good win, all right? That was a really good win, and I'm not trying to say anything about that fight. Like, that was a legit win. But, like, you look at the other guys he's fought that, like, aren't 35-plus aging guys, like Dom Cruz, Frankie Edgar, Pedro Munoz. These guys are all older, aging guys, not in their prime, or really, besides Munoz, anywhere close to it. And he's, besides the Rob Font fight, which I will give him credit for, that was a very good performance. You look at Sandhagen and Song Yadong. Both fights he lost. While the Song Yadong fight was close, I do think Song Yadong won that fight. The Sandhagen fight was an absolute stinker performance from Cheeto. It was literally one of the worst performances I remember seeing. Like, in recent memory, the only one that is worse than that is Derek Lewis's performance against Jailton Almeida. Like, literally, Cheeto did not even try that fight. It was literally crazy. But then other than that, like, he knocked out Dom Cruz. Yeah, good. That was a good knockout. Like, nobody does Dom Cruz like that. But he was losing to Dom Cruz, and he was losing to Frankie Edgar before he knocked him out. And it's like, and I'm not even saying he was losing to them because they're better than him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, his style is like that he loses fights, and not fights, he loses rounds waiting to land the big shot. And, like, yeah, it does work sometimes, but it's not always going to work. Like, you know what I mean? He's not always going to find the big shot. Like, I think he was really trying to find that big shot on Sandhagen, but he just never found it. And I think that it's going to be a similar case with Sean, especially because Sean's so flat, like, has such good footwork and in and out movement and things like that. Like, I think he's going to have a hard time finding Sean and landing big on him and setting him up and then catching him with a big shot like he did to Dom Cruz. I don't think it's going to be as easy for him to do. Now, the fight is 5 rounds, so I will give Cheeto a bit of, you know, like, he has 5 rounds to catch Sean, but at the same time, Sean has 5 rounds to catch him. And I think that Sean will have a very, very, not easy time, but I think he'll have success on the outside, picking away at Cheeto, where Cheeto can't touch him because Sean's so long for bantamweight. So I think that Sean's path to victory in this fight will be to stay on the outside, in and out movement, moving side to side, try to stay away from the cage because that's where Cheeto would be able to catch him. That's where he caught Frankie, and that's where he caught Dom Cruz with those big head kicks when they were against the cage. And just kind of touching Cheeto up and getting him, frustrated, not letting him get things going. And then I think eventually in the third, Cheeto's going to get a little frustrated, go for something big, and then Sean's going to counter him. And yeah, I mean, I honestly see Sean winning this fight by TKO in like round 4 or 5 after picking apart Cheeto for the beginning part of the fight and then catching him clean and putting him away. And I'm really excited to see the Sandhagen O'Malley matchup. I think that's the matchup to make for bantamweight, but I know that they have history, Cheeto and O'Malley, and that this is a big fight because it's Sean's only loss. So, yeah, I mean, these fights are very good fights, 3 big matchups, I'm really excited for all of them, and I hope you guys are too. If you guys have any other opinions on how the fights might go or this, that, and the other, make sure you leave them down in the comments. I reply to every comment, and I read them all. So if you guys have any suggestions or any opinions of your own, don't feel free to leave them below. I'll respond, and I'll read them, and I'll take them into consideration. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.